Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gents. My name is Luke Rogers. I'm the Director of Key Accounts at SpotMe. I'm joined today by Andrew Binns, who saw presenting yesterday. Thanks very much for sticking around after lunch. Just to introduce SpotMe, so SpotMe is an events solution. We are the event application, so if you've downloaded the event app from Dario and the team, you are already using SpotMe. And we're working with pharma companies, medtech, but we're also across industry. So we're working across professional consulting, FMCG and energy as well. So thanks very much. Today we really want to talk about what 2024 is going to look like in terms of events. And events, I think, is important just to set aside in terms of our lens as a vendor, looking at how the pharma industry is leveraging, or let's say not leveraging, events within their omnichannel and CX kind of journeys. So that's kind of what we're going to be kind of touching on today. But first of all, kind of throwing over to Andrew, I wanted to get your sense of what's 2023 look like for you in terms of the events you've been doing, and how do you see the CX journey kind of evolving as it stands now?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the reasons Sarah, who's just spoken, is one of my favorite human beings in pharma is because she's really educating people, including myself, heavily on how you measure success. And it's always quite intimidating for me, the amount of data that pharma generates, and a lot of it is so intimidating I ignore it. So I think having these really clear KPIs and that, so that it's like a simple thing. I'm 100% still in that, Sarah, wherever you are. I think 2023 for me, from an events point of view, you bear in mind there's 18 brands in AstraZeneca UK, all with completely siloed digital virtual event strategies, all using different platforms. None of them particularly reporting on any behavior change or mindset shift that they were trying to achieve. A lot of the surveys that went out after these webinars were things like, out of 10, would you recommend this to a colleague? Out of 10, did you enjoy yourself? Now, their KPI is basically for a brand manager to go to their boss and say, look at what a good job I'm doing. Sure. What I think we needed to do is bring the virtual events into the sort of more holistic customer engagement strategy and not have them delivered as silos. So rather than having 480 separate events going on across AstraZeneca UK that often ended in cul-de-sacs, is 2024 needs to be a lot more sophisticated, a lot more joined up, a lot more integrated with some of the amazing platforms we've got. You know, we utilize Viva for the moment as our CRM system. I've said this before, we use it like an expensive Excel spreadsheet. So we really need to start utilizing that as a proper CRM system. And to do that, I want to understand what engagement HCP has had on our events, what is motivating them to attend our events, what the barriers are for them who have said they're going to come but then don't come, what is the email that we sent out to remind them that didn't resonate with them, that they've not attended. I think we're very lazy in the marketing department within pharma, where we'll just send an email out to say, we've got an event going on, do you want to join it? Whilst if you think about it, in non-pharma, you're encouraged with the benefits of attending the event. What is in it for me? Why should I give up my valuable time and attend your event? And so that before event engagement is really, really important. The reminder email that goes out needs to just prompt them and stimulate their interest even more and give them something different and almost get them salivating about the thought of attending an event, if you can ever do that about a pharma event. And then I think how we engage with people during those events, making it as seamless an experience as possible, empathizing with the fact that a lot of the NHS can't access Zoom. So that causes major problems, and yet we spent 2 years completely ignoring that fact. And then, you know, things like breakout rooms, I think we're getting really good, and I bet there's a lot of people in this room who are getting really good at delivering very engaging online sessions now. It's not just a case of what I was delivering face-to-face, I'm now delivering online, because face-to-face I can look at everyone, I can see people are engaged, or Dario's like shaking his head going, no, Andrew, move on. Whilst online, you don't have that contact with people. So I think those breakout rooms are really good. Now, I want to understand what's going on in those breakout rooms, not in a Big Brother way, but so I can start making my content even more contextual based on my understanding of them. So I think some of the amazing webinar platforms that are out there are genuinely changing the way that we engage with our HCPs virtually.
Perfect, yeah. So what we're seeing as well is that the CX from the HCP point of view, when it comes to events, again, you're dealing with this proliferation of event platforms that are out there, and there's just so many different logons and places to go. So this is one area where we're seeing a lot of alignment and kind of unification happening, and a lot of energy is being spent by pharma companies to kind of deconflict and streamline that process. I mean, how does that kind of streamlining, I guess, effort start internally?
Yeah, so I suppose the first thing that we're really lucky in the UK is how we get HCPs to engage with our digital platforms is a lot less rigorous in the validation phase than, say, our colleagues in Germany, who have to get people to register in a far more robust, validating way. We can basically just say, "Are you a doctor? Yes, good. Come on in." And so I think that's a massive benefit. Where I still feel that we're very siloed is that our website platform doesn't talk to our webinar platform.
Yeah.
Our CRM system doesn't talk to any of our platforms. Our email marketing tools aren't engaging with our CRM system, so we're not understanding what's working and what isn't. But from a CX point of view, I want our HCPs to have as seamless an experience as possible. So the email, the events that they're attending, the call to action after that event to say visit the brand website or the main AstraZeneca.co.uk website, that needs to then acknowledge the fact that they've attended a webinar. We use Adobe Experience Manager as our platform, again using probably 5% of its capabilities. The way that it can explicitly and implicitly personalize the experience for HCPs, that's all available for us to use, right. But we're just not using the data that we've got on these people. Dr. Dario has been on a webinar. The next time he engages with us, we should be clever enough, our system should be clever enough to say, right, we know Dr. Dario was on this webinar, we know it was around severe asthma, so let's contextualize and personalize that experience as much as we possibly can. And again, a lot more technically robust people in this room than me, but people will know that whether it's Sitecore, Sitefinity, Adobe Experience Manager, these big enterprise CMS platforms that Pharma spends millions of pounds using and then uses it as if it's like a WordPress CMS. So I really think that the webinar platforms that we're using, the live event platforms, need to now integrate with our full digital platforms. I think if we can have a mindset internally of not having a website strategy over here, a meeting strategy over here, a VAE strategy over here, and just try and somehow put our customers at the heart of our content strategies, that will mean that we're a lot more joined up, we're a lot more aligned, and we'll benefit. Do you know what I mean? We'll deliver a better customer experience. People will have a far greater propensity to visit AstraZeneca's webinars, to read our emails, to visit our websites than what I think they've got at the moment.
Okay, and what's the kind of the through line that, if you were going to the board to kind of show the value of going through the pain of that integration process, what's the metric or the uptick, the delta that you'd hopefully be able to show when that process is complete?
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I sold it into our senior leadership team, I'm almost embarrassed that I'm saying it, but I used Amazon and Netflix as an example, and not because I'm trying to do the Netflix of Pharma or like everyone else talks about. What I was trying to do is say that I saw the customer experience director of Netflix talk, and he said when they set Netflix up, their number one ambition was that no human being on planet Earth would ever have the same experience on Netflix as another human being on planet Earth. And they have achieved that. Like, every single person in this room has a different experience than anyone else in this room on Netflix. And that's not because they've got millions of shows and millions of TV shows and they remake Handmaid's Tale for me versus how they remake, for Sarah. It's still the same piece of content, but how they drive people to that content is the different experience you get. How they recommend content, how they show me updated TV shows. So that mentality, that expectation I have in everyday life is what HCPs expect from pharma companies now. So selling it into the SLT around an integrated experience, that phrase that Sarah used, so that we can give our HCPs the experience that they're engaging with in non-life, in non-pharma life, so that they start trusting AstraZeneca as a source of content that is relevant and appropriate for them, so that they start seeing AstraZeneca as a company that they want to engage with, that they look forward to getting content with, so that we sell them more drugs. So that's the ultimate aim. Thanks, Sarah. I've used "so that" like loads of times, but see, it works really well. So yeah, that's how we sold it in, not as a technical project, not as an expensive project, but as a way of basically saying we've got all of these amazing tools and platforms in pharma, literally the Rolls-Royce of tech stack. We've got this incredible deep insights into our audiences, and yet we as people aren't doing that. And it was the guy from Roche, he was talking about the fact that technology is only as good as the people using it, and 100% aligned with that. Proper marketeers from non-pharma, like myself and like a lot of other people who've talked today, coming into pharma, it's like going into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's the greatest thing in the world. And I really feel there's a massive opportunity for us to completely transform how we engage with our HCPs, and that single process is definitely what we should be striving to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the commercial spend across the pharma industry, this IQVIA stats, basically events, webinars, medical education seminars, they make up about 15%, about $7.5 billion in aggregate spend. And so it's something to really take seriously. And these events, they actually generate a lot of data. So in our experience from a medical education webinar, you're probably taking about 150 data points that we can pass along the channel. And our roadmap is to get to about 300 in about 6 months' time. So there's a lot that can be fed into your in-house CRM, marketing automation, HCP portal. And whether the events is outside of your HCP portal or inside your HCP portal, doesn't matter. I mean, they can all kind of contribute. But what we're seeing that the events in 2023 have grown about kind of 40 to 50% in spend. But in 2024, it looks like it's going to kind of peter out. It looks like it's going to flatline a little bit. And we think this is that bubble post-COVID, that everyone's back face-to-face. That's great. But we think things will kind of just steady on a little bit. So now it's really going to be about making the most out of the content that you've put in and scaling that out, and things like repurposing content, which Natalia was talking about as well. I mean, how important is that kind of repurposing and kind of driving efficiencies now that the budgets might be tightening up, so to speak?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, I think within AZ, our strategy is that we're actually going to be increasing our digital engagements with even our most experienced, let's call them experienced leaders who are very field force biased, are now starting to come around about the fact that if you define the role of the field force rather than having the field force as the be all and end all, and thank goodness we've stopped using language like the rep is at the heart of omnichannel and the rep is at the heart of anything. They don't even want to be at the heart of everything. Like I think it was there was a lady yesterday who was talking around like vacuum cleaner, sell it. Yeah. I see digital as almost the door knockers, warming up the leads, generating that interest, and then let the reps go in and be amazing at what they are, or the MSLs. So I think that is a trend that we might be bucking against, right, where we're increasing the face-to-face visits again. But I certainly think things like modular content, which I got a little bit obsessed with at the beginning of the year, because I was a bit like, if we create the content and then we can push it out across our different channels, from a cost efficiencies point of view, that's amazing. But this obsession our compliance and ethics team had with basically seeing every single piece of content in the context that it was going to be delivered in, that was the barrier to modular development. They basically, if I said, look, this piece of content can live on a website, can go on across as part of an email, it's going to be part of a leave piece. I only want to create it once. Right. Can you sign it off? But they were like, no, we've got to see the context that it's in. And I'm sure there's a very good reason for that, but I can't think what it is.
And you're
so that's a barrier to that.
Well connected to your compliance team.
Well, like I said yesterday, they are my best friends. and yet I think they're open to it, but their old way of working is, I want to see before I sign a website off, I want to see the website, which in non-pharma is crazy. You would sign off a Figma prototype or a clickable prototype or a wireframe, or Jesus, even some of the football clubs we used to work with would sign off a scamp and a sketch and just say, yeah, we're fine with that, because I don't see why you need to see every single aspect of it. So yeah, I think that efficiencies of content is something that we really should be pushing our compliance teams to start engaging with. So any pharma company who's really nailed the modular content side, then please grab us after.
So the vision of a personalized newsletter with content specific to that HCP's clinical trial involvements, prescription history, et cetera, still has to go through, would obviously still be limited by any compliance.
Yeah, and I think that's again where we're engaging with these people very early on and basically saying, look, this is my vision. If we're genuinely going to offer an experience, a personalized experience to individual HCPs based on our knowledge of who they are, what their prescribing behavior is, what type of persona type they fall into, how they're engaging with AstraZeneca content, we've got to get over this fact that you're going to have content that is unapproved content going to them. So when I say unapproved, I mean it's unapproved in the environment that they're viewing it in. Of course it's approved content,
Sure,
but the fact that it's in block number 2 of an email rather than block number 1 of a web page, I'm not sure that's particularly going to bring AstraZeneca's brand into disrepute.
Okay, very cool. Great, so I'd like to open up to any questions about events, Event CX, integration of events within your omnichannel kind of ecosystems. Any questions out there for us? Yep, there is, yep.
Thank you for this insightful discussion. I was wondering what you see, Andrew, is the role of AI technology in delivering that personalized content experience?
Yeah. When everyone started talking about AI about this time last year, I was a bit like, look, we've got to get our content strategy right to start with. But in the last 3 months, we did a blind test where we took one of our biggest brands and we used AI to recreate some content. And then we got our medical teams, our brand teams, and our creative teams to also write the content. And then we tested it with independent testers from a compliance point of view, from a HCP empathetic point of view, and the AI content won, scored higher, which you can imagine like the impact that had on some of my colleagues. But what it allowed us to do is to start saying, well, look, if we're going to be creating a lot of different content, we are going to need support on that type of content. Now, of course, AI is only as good as the prompts that you're giving it and the people who are creating it. So I actually think it's going to really help companies like AstraZeneca, and it's not going to put anyone out of a job, because you still need that skill set, you still need that compliance, you still need the checking of it. But to spend a week and £8,000 writing an email, either internally or giving that to an agency, or having AI do it in 20 minutes, I think is definitely the way that we're heading.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. It's good to see that there's been at least one on events, because I feel like, well, at least in my experience, events seem to be one of the great added value that pharma can give to doctors and give them the opportunity to engage. Andrew, you mentioned that like a lot of people are doing these events, and it's this on journey, the customer journey from the invitation all the way through to the insights you get and the follow-up with each individual isn't really being done or measured very well. As you can tell, you're quite frustrated with that aspect. But I'm just wondering what you feel the barrier to that is, because as you said, I would expect that would be a fundamental marketing skill to be able to join those journeys together. We've been doing like some trainings, internal trainings with marketing teams on like very, very, very basic skills around content development and journey development. I don't know if that is the only gap, if that's one in your experience, or are there other barriers that are preventing people from being able to do this? Another example for me is that I feel often when we ask people about their CRM, it's like it's a black hole. They've never used it, they've never practiced with it, and therefore they don't feel empowered to design journeys because they don't know what the capability is. So if you can talk to that a bit and your experience.
Yeah, I think I'm really aligned with a lot of stuff that you've said over the last couple of days. I think you'd be brilliant coming up here one day. But I think there's two barriers. I think you're 100% right in that a lot of my brand colleagues see the creation of assets as a box ticking exercise. Like, oh, we've got to do a webinar. They're not understanding the power of what a webinar can do. They're not understanding that the entire point of creating any piece of content should be to shift someone from a particular attitude into a different attitude, a particular behavior into a different behavior. Otherwise, that's marketing 101, right? But if we're just doing stuff for the sake of doing it, or because we've promised to do 10 webinars a month, so we're going to do 10 webinars a month, that's a mindset that we needed to get people out of. The power of creative content is woefully undervalued in pharma because we're so medically dominated. So we've got in AstraZeneca, some of my medical colleagues were writing creative content. As I used to be like a copywriter when I was in my agency days. I would never dream of trying to write medical content myself, and I would never dream of having a medical content writer writing creative copy. But creative copy was undervalued, so anyone was doing it. So you had brand managers with no copywriting skills doing it. You had medical guys writing it, and of course, it was bland, it was boring, it was uninspiring, and it meant that our emails inviting people to webinars were getting lost in amongst all the other pharma companies' bland, boring, uninspiring emails. So by investing in creative copywriters and investing in our agency partners and giving them the brief to say, look, I need this to cut through the noise, I need this to stand out from the crowd, that's really helped people understand the power of that content journey. The other barrier is literally getting people in pharma to stay in a job longer than 2 years because these aren't 6-month projects. Do you know what I mean? The full aspiration for AstraZeneca's digital strategy is a 5-year project. Right. But we're starting off with someone who I started working with this time last year, and now they're like, right, I've been here 18 months now, I want a different job, which I find so alien because you just don't have that in non-pharma. Like for me, I've thrown a load of hand grenades into AstraZeneca UK. If I walked away from that, I think that would be morally repugnant of me to do that. If you're going in and you're trying to disrupt things a little bit, you can't just be the horizon gazer. You've got to be the deliverer of it as well, yeah. So we've got 18 brands all following all the frameworks I've talked about. We've got 18 brands all following, you know, the brilliant strategy from a webinar point of view, the digital strategy. You need people to be committed to delivering that and not just someone being able to present it as on a stage like this and then never ever delivering it. If I'm here this time next year, I hope I am, then I would love to be able to say this is what we've delivered, because I think everyone in this room, everyone I've spoken to, all we want to hear now is what have we done, not what do we plan to do. We're all planning to do loads of brilliant stuff. Let's now focus in on, all right, we've done it. And if it hasn't worked, then so what? Like AZ's still going to make £1 billion this year. So I think that's a key thing. That's a promise I'll definitely make, is that any failures I have, I'll share as much as I'm allowed.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Thanks for listening, and thanks, Andy. Great job.
Thank you.